Our next guest is Jason Bowdach, and you longtime LACPUG fans and who have been here many times know Jason. He's been with us many times, especially as a guru during Stump the Gurus. He is a professional colorist and a finishing artist based right here in LA, and his credits span feature films and broadcast television and streaming platforms with clients including Adobe, Amazon, Google, Hyundai, Fox, and Disney. And he's also the founder of Pixel Tools. And Pixel Tools is dedicated to improving the filmmaking process through its development of artist-focused color grading tools and training. Anyway, he's a proud member of the Colorist Society of Hollywood, which is a really cool thing, a professional organization representing colorists in NABET Local 53. So please welcome Jason Bowdach.
Well, thank you, Michael, for getting through what I understand is a little bit of a lengthy intro, and thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. So I hear you guys are excited about Resolve 19. Thank you. Okay, cool, there we go. So my name is Jason Bowdach. As Michael mentioned, I'm a professional colorist based in the Los Angeles area, and I'm here to show you guys some cool stuff that came out with Davinci Resolve 19. Now, first and foremost, I hate that I have to say this, but I'm gonna say it just in case it comes up later, but this is a beta release, and with every beta release, well, beta stuff happens. We might experience crashes, we may experience, well, awkwardness up here on stage, with me especially, and what I really recommend is do not upgrade your working version of Resolve with this. If you want to upgrade this on your laptop, on a side machine, on an old project that you want to experiment with, go ahead. But please, for the love of God, do not upgrade a current project that you're working on and move to the beta. While it is quite stable for beta software, we are continually finding issues, and you don't want to be one that finds that issue while trying to get something out the door. Great, now that I've gotten that out of the way, we can jump into it. So tonight, I'm going to be showing you guys 10 features from the beta that really stood out to me. Now there's significantly more than 10 features that stood out to me, but these were the top 10 features. Now, to make this a little bit more fun than a boring old Blackmagic demo or, any type of software demo, I decided to do something that I'm pretty bad at. I cut together a little bit of a spec demo to show off Davinci Resolve 19. So I'm going to play this back real quick, and you're going to see really just how poor of an actual offline editor I am. Every craft needs the right tool, whether it be a blade or the right software. No matter whether you work outside or in a dark, lightless room, Davinci Resolve 19 is right for you. Download it today. Great, I have to see if my sense of humor is at least valid. So basically I took a bunch of stock footage and some really, really terrible VO that I recorded purposefully outside with a bunch of background noise and tried to put something together that's mildly professional. You guys ever had to do something like that, put together a bunch of crap and make it look professional? No, never had to do that. Great. Well, if you've never had to do that, then this won't be at all interesting to you. But if you've had, then these features will be interesting to you. So these are all combination of red clips. We have some RA clips. Let me mute this so my voiceover doesn't drive us crazy. And I have a little bit of a color grade applied to them. We'll go over that. Nothing too popular. And I have a stock audio file from Audio. They're a great resource if you ever need to do that. And I'm going to use this quick demo to show you those 10 features. And let's jump into our first feature, which is the Film Look Creator Resolve Effects. Now, who here is interested in film emulation? I think I saw another hand, a couple hands behind that bright light. A lot of people really enjoy film emulation, myself included. And it's a really, really popular request from clients. Plus, honestly, there was 100 years of film. So it makes perfect sense that we want to make our digitally captured footage look a little bit closer to film. I have another version of, and we're just going to work on this raw. And we're just going to start on this clip right here. Now I'm going to give us a little bit more room by closing a couple of our panels, and we're going to find the film look creator inside the effects panel. So I'll find it by typing film look, and we're going to drag it onto a node right here. Now I'm going to shift F to give us a sort of larger look at our image and allow us to adjust film look creator. And you'll see right off the bat that we get sort of a pretty strong look, and I wanted to get something right off the bat. Film look creator is not supposed to emulate any specific type of stock. Not a Kodak stock, not an Ektachrome stock, no 500T. It is supposed to create sort of a generic film S style look. And we have some presets here. We have a 65mm, we have a 35mm, we have a cinematic, which throws in some bars, we have some bleach bypass, we have nostalgic, and then we have default no effects. Now, personally, I would have loved if the effect came with the default no effects enabled. That's how I feel film emulation is better applied, starting from an almost nothing effect if I turn this on and off. Even with default no effect, for me, it still has quite a bit of an effect on there. But the whole purpose of this is to make a sort of generic, nebulous film look much easier to apply to your footage without having to deal with the built-in film looks, without having to use a third-party effect like Dehancer or Filmbox. And for most people, this will work great. Now let's dive into this and take a look at it a little closer. Now we have, I'll start with the default no effects. We have a color blend and an effects blend. Now this just allows us to sort of back off either the color of the look or the effects of it. Now we'll see what those are as we go down here. Now, one of the neat things about this effect is it can be exported as a 3D lookup table. Say you want to have this in camera, you want to actually view what you're shooting, how it might be in the grade. Well, this effect is built with that in mind. You can actually set your input color space and your output color space and export a show LUT using this tool. So this was designed not for just the most basic film emulation, but actually for some advanced workflows that might want to go from production all the way to post. Now, I don't think most people are going to be using that, but I wanted to point that out to show that this is not just your simple film emulation tool that Blackmagic expects the YouTube creator to slap on there and call it a day. There was quite a lot of thought put behind this to make this as accessible as possible for the most amount of people. Now, if we move over into color settings, we have what I find to be quite a wide variety of controls that I find useful during the creation of a film emulation look. So right here we have the photometric exposure from the HDR panel, so I can adjust my exposure and stops just like I would if I were working with the lens. I have contrast, also similar to the HDR panel. I can adjust my highlights to bring them up and down. Now, it's important to remember that this is for the creative look. You're going to want to apply this to everything and not on a shot basis, so you want to be careful with that. If we want to build a little bit of a fade at the bottom of the S-curve, we can do that right there. If I want to go to 11, if you want to see what that does. We also have a white balance control, which compared to the temperature controls on the primary panel, the white balance control actually uses the chromatic adaptation effect. So it's a very color science accurate effect. Tint and skin bias are as described. We tint at the green or magenta, and skin bias is going to lean it in the same way. Subtractive saturation is a more filmic style saturation where the hues get more saturated but they don't get brighter. The richness slider focuses on adding saturation to hue values that are already heavily saturated. And then last but not least, we have the bleach bypass effect, which you can apply as needed. Now, if we continue going down here, we have this wide variety of film emulation effects, and I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, but just know that you can tune all of these to taste. So we have split tone, and if you don't know what split tone is, basically it's applying a specific color to the highlights or shadows differently to give it a little bit of a tint. We have a vignette, which is pretty obvious. We're going to add a vignette. Halation and bloom is a film effect where we add a little bit of a glow to the highlights due to the celluloid nature. Bloom is sort of just like a glow. Grain is another way that we can add grain other than the film grain effect, which I think is really, really useful. And I actually think that I like this grain effect more than the film grain effect. It should be noted that I have had limited time to mess around with these in actual projects because I've been experimenting with it, but I see myself using this grain actually probably more than the built-in film grain effect. A couple of what I call more legacy film effects, things that you think you might want, but the more you use them, you're probably going to use them less, which are flicker, gate weave, and film gate. So these are things that are more from the projection end, where you may have a little bit of flicker on the actual film moving through the camera, both in the capture and in the projection. Gate weave and film gate are of a similar nature if you really want to add a little bit of flickeriness to film. So this is a pretty thorough effect for something that comes with a NLE and color correction. This is something that I'm used to paying $199, $299, or even $399 for. So the fact that this now comes with Resolve now gives you a huge, huge step forward in designing your own sort of filmic style effect. And if you still need to match to something that's really exact, if you have either a scene that's been shot on celluloid film, you can still reach out to the third-party effects like Filmbox and Dehancer. So this is not meant to replace that, it's more meant to go somewhere in the middle. Feature number 2 is the color slice panel. Now, the color slice panel is another tool similar to the color warper and the hue curves that allows for precise secondary adjustments without keying or windows. It also allows for density correction, and if I go back to Resolve, I'm going to go to a different clip so we can get a little bit better of an effect. I'm going to go to my charts, and I'll clear this node out. Now you can find the color slice panel right over here, and if I zoom in, you'll see it's right over here. It looks like this ink dot. And if I click it, we get this whole brand new panel that was not previously in any other version of Davinci Resolve. And if it looks sort of similar to the hue curves, you're right, they should. They're sort of based off them. So we have all of our different hues, red, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and magenta, plus one for skin tone, which is a really, really nice tool. So what can we do with this that we couldn't have done with all of our other tools? We have these hue curves right over here, if you're not familiar. We also have this great color warper tool. Why do we need another hue and saturation tool? Well, we didn't really have density control in any of those other tools. So what is density? Well, let me just start to turn up density right here, and you'll get to see that. Do you see what's happening when I turn this on and off? We're getting a sort of change in the luminance for those hues. Now, we can also adjust that, say we don't like how much density, and we want to adjust essentially where that density is being placed in the image. We can adjust the density depth. And that's going to change essentially where the density is being placed according to the luminance. So this is a general control, but what happens if I want to control a specific color? Well, that's where these vectors underneath go. So let's adjust for skin tone. So I'm going to go for skin, and if I click right here, I'm going to get a highlight. I can also use Shift H to keep that highlight mode up, and I'm going to increase our density. And if you're ever confused about these two, you can just sort of leave your mouse over there and it'll go density and saturation. And I'm going to increase her skin tone a little bit. Now she's looking a little bit too orange in my opinion, so I'd like to lean her towards red. So we have this neat hue control for each of these hues. So let me take this hue and I'm going to lean it a little bit on the red side. Now that I'm looking at this again, I think we're too saturated. So I'm going to reduce this a tiny bit. And if I turn this node on and off again, you can see what we've done with that. Real quickly, real easily. Now I probably could do this with the color warper, but it would require a lot more manual control. I'd have to go and select a couple of these, increase my saturation, go down to my luminance. So it's really nice to have this great panel, and I'll zoom in for you guys right here, that has hue, all my individual hues, a density control, a saturation control, and an ability to adjust that. So let's say that if I reset this, her skin tone wasn't exactly qualified. This is a chart, so this is shot in a perfect environment, but let's say that we don't have a perfect environment. Let's say that right here, I'll go Shift H, I need to adjust what's in this skin tone key. So I can actually change the center of this. And watch what happens to the red and the yellow. You can see right here and right here that as I start to move the center of my skin, went too far for my zoom, that you'll see that the red and the yellow also react accordingly. So it's a very intuitive control. Shift H to get out of highlight mode. Now let's just add a bunch of saturation to this, make this nice and dense. I really like my cyans. Let's go Shift H to see what we're selecting. We're not really selecting what I want, so let's move it a tiny bit. Command D, great. Let's adjust the green a tiny bit more. We're going to make that nice and saturated, and that's essentially the color slice panel. You can continue to do this with general saturation, and we have a saturation balance and saturation depth control here, but it just gives you another tool for precise saturation adjustment. Is it going to replace every other tool we have in Resolve? Absolutely not. But it's really nice to have this tool, and personally, I'm not sure where it's going to fit. I'm probably going to reach for this before the color warper, but after hue curves. Awesome. Okay, so that's my second. The neat thing about all of Resolve's tools, and I'll have questions at the end, is you can always continue to do multiple isolations. So even though right now it doesn't actually have any understanding of what a person is, it's just looking for all of the skin-like tones in this area. But if I needed, I could further do this with power windows. Now, the only thing that is going to be highlighted in here is going, or it should be that power window. You can see that right there. So if I make a change, let's say if I make, so you can see that even though I have my greens really increase in saturation and density, we don't really see any change on the greenery in the back. Okay, so feature number 3, we have the music remixer effects. And this one's for Michael because he wanted a lot of audio stuff in here. And I'll admit, this is a pretty cool effect. This is one of those that I gathered a couple people once I figured out how this works and goes, look at this. So the music remixer allows us to remix and remove specific aspects of a music clip. We can remove voice, drums, bass, guitar, and they call it other sources, but it's everything else. And the beauty of this is this allows us to optimize clips that we might not have stems for, and in a very emergency situation, you can create audio stems when they don't exist. I put mostly because it's not going to be the same thing as audio stems, but if you don't have them, it's a very useful case. Let's see how that works in practice. So let's go to my done promo. Actually, let's look at this part. Oh, my favorite cut page. So when I gathered my audio, I was recording on this iPhone for the VO, and the track that I got from audio had some vocals in it, which didn't work for this. So let's play that back and see what that sounds like. Every craft needs the right tools, whether it be a blade or the right software. No matter whether you work outside or in a dark place. Okay, so I have the track. It's not an instrumental track. I have some vocals from the band that I don't want interrupting my VO. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here. We're going to open up our inspector. And we have our new feature, the music remixer, right here. So I'll enable it. And we immediately have all of these options for muting everything and sort of giving, it's not EQ, but it's giving you volume control over it. So let's go and mute our volume and our other and see what it sounds like. Every craft needs, I'm going to solo this so we can just hear this. And it's coming up. So I still barely hear it, but that's far improved from what it was before. I'll unmute it so we can hear it again. We are the answer. And then I'll turn it on. So if I'm going to put VO on that, that's going to be good enough for me. So let me see what it sounds like with my VO on top. No matter whether you work outside or in a dark, lightless room. Good enough for me. Hey, I'm a colorist. What do you want from me? So I actually think that's neat, but I'm going to take it one step further. And I do want to mention, because I had some trouble with this myself, it's not in the clip. So if I click on the clip, you'll look for Music Remixer until you die. It's actually on the track. So when I click on the track right here, I have all of my new audio effects. So I can actually bump up my drums and my bass, because the bass is my favorite part. And let's mute the guitar too. Every craft needs the right tool, whether it be a blade or the right. So that's the music remixer effect. And even if this is not my favorite example, I think the more complex music you throw at it, the more useful it's going to be. It's one of those tools that is not as sexy as you think it is when you first see it, but the more you end up starting to play with it, the more useful it is. Like the first time I heard it sort of remove vocals, I was like, okay, cool. We can do this online. I can go to a website and do that. But the fact that it's right in your editor right here is really, really helpful, because now you can sort of pull things that you may have not originally pulled into your editor and sweeten it. And I'm not good at audio. I'll openly admit that. I'm a colorist. And it's really easy to get great sounding audio out of these tools. So that is feature number 3, the music remixer effect. And I should mention that I'm using this in the edit tab. All of these new audio features work in the Fairlight tab, and they work far better with more control. So even though right now it seems pretty simple, you are able, with a lot more automation controls, able to use these in the Fairlight tab. Number 4, another audio feature, the ducker effects. The automatic duck you always wanted and never knew you needed. Is there anybody in here who does not know what ducking is? Can't see any hands, so I'm going to tell you what it is anyways. So ducking is essentially the adjustment of an audio track by using another one. And usually you'd have to go through and keyframe volumes manually, but we can use some AI-powered magic to help us automatically duck for us. And if you can't figure out what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the VO track to duck the music for us. Every craft needs the right tool. Okay, so you can hear it's not terrible, but anybody who's worked with audio before is going to go, they're competing. So let's bring that down, and we can find this in the ducker effects. Same thing, track effects, and all we need to do is select a source. I've named my track VO because I'm a professional and I like to stay organized. And now we can set our duck level. And this is the reduction. Now let's see how it works. Every craft needs the right tools, whether it be a blade or the right software. No matter whether you work outside or in a dark, lightless room, Davinci Resolve 19 is right for you. So probably a little bit more than I would normally want to do, especially if I were doing it manually, but definitely a really good start. And if you have an hour-long interview with this, it's going to save you a ton of time. Again, reminder that you can go into the Fairlight tab and have a lot more control over this. We don't have a ton of control on the edit tab. It's pretty automatic, but it's nice to have this. Again, get your audio to mix itself, sort of. It's always going to work better if you guys do it, but it's definitely nice to have sort of a starting place with that, especially if you're not good at audio. Feature number 5, the dialogue separator effect. You can see that I shoved all the audio stuff in one section, right? Okay, so the dialogue separator effects is sort of in the same family as all of these last 2 effects. And I didn't really find a great use for it here because in an attempt to make really poor quality VO, our phones are so good now that I actually made a pretty good one. It's amazing. I was hoping to get like really poor quality background, but I didn't. So not really able to give you guys a great demo of it. But what it does is the dialogue separator allows you to do sort of the same thing we were doing for audio, the music remixer, but for dialogues. And we're able to separate out the voice, the background noise, and the ambience, and essentially remix that. And this is really, really useful for tracks when you're captured on set, when you have a really, really good take, and you want to use that take, and maybe the ADR is really bad, or you don't have ADR. And so this will allow you to sort of remix that dialogue track, maybe make sure the voice is prominent and there's a tiny bit of background noise and only 10% of the ambience, and make that sellable. And so it's a pretty unique effect. Like I said, I don't have a great example of it here, but it is a really, really useful effect and can basically help you save from an ADR session. Okay, node graph stacks. So we're back on the color page a little bit. And this one's a little bit hard to understand, but I think this one is huge for anybody that's working in color in Davinci Resolve. Anybody that's worked on the color page knows that we have a clip and then we have the timeline settings. But if you're working on large projects, that can be a little bit limiting. So what do? Well, usually you do groups. And so we get the clip, pre-clip group, and then the post-clip group. Well, sometimes that's still not enough. What if we need more organization for our color grading? What if we want it to not be in groups at all? What if we just want additional stuff for our clips? And that's exactly what this node graph stacks are for. Now, I want to show you where to turn this on first. So you go to your project settings, you go to general options, and in the color, you can set the number of node stack layers right here. And by default, it's set to 1. I'm going to go set it to 3. And up here you see that I have clip grade, clip look, and clip window. And if you're not seeing that, let me zoom in real quick. And you'll see that normally where it would say clip, I have clip grade, clip look, and clip windows. So these are 3 more areas that I can use to organize my color grade. So for instance, I might do my color grade right here. I might do a little bit of look development on the clip level right here. And then I might do all my windowing right here. Now the power of this is these layers are 100% user adjustable. I can use these for whatever I want. I might use this for corrective adjustments. I might use layer 2 for look-based developments, and then I might use layer 3 for revisions. So really, this is endless, and this is a great organizational tool for what colorists and finishing artists have been complaining about for a long time, which is we need more room on the node graph. And instead of making a bigger node graph, they just gave us more node graphs, which I'm fine with. So a couple of things that I've thought about uses for this is great for node-based color management. This is great for SDR, HDR grading. You can keep your SDR grade on one, you can keep your HDR revisions on another. You can use them for corrective, creative, and blank, meaning there are a bunch of things that I haven't even thought of and I haven't even begun to think of that this can be used for, and I encourage you to use the idea of this to think of new ways and new workflows. Feature number 7, ultra noise reduction, Anyways, so ultra noise reduction is a spatial-based neural network-powered noise reduction, and contrary to what I see a lot of people saying, this is not a replacement for neat video, but it is a great upgrade for the noise reduction built into Davinci Resolve. I can find it right over here, and let me go to a clip that has some noise on it. Let me just go to this clip right here. Great. Normally for noise reduction, you usually start over at temporal noise reduction, which is based on time. It looks at before and after and compares the noise. Well, the ultra noise reduction is a spatial noise reduction, meaning it looks at pixels around the noise. So to activate that, we go to the mode and you select ultra noise reduction. We're not done yet. We need to click analyze. Now you'll notice that we have this little box right here. That's where the machine learning algorithm has determined is the best place to sample. It doesn't mean that's automatically the best place, but usually it's pretty good. You can turn that off right here if you'd like. And notice that it is automatically set the luma and chroma values for the nose profile. You can now press forward and it'll automatically be doing noise reduction. You can adjust this. So if I move this, I can adjust the size. Oh, I missed my full-size keyboard. I'm going to move this over here, and notice that when I moved that, now if I move this over here, pay attention to the luma and chroma numbers. Automatically gets redetected. If I drag this bigger, automatically gets redetected. So you click the analyze button once, you drag this for where you want to detect the noise, and the noise reduction happens automatically. It's a pretty useful piece of noise reduction technology. The difference between this and faster, better, enhanced is simply the fact that it's been trained on real world material as opposed to sort of the old mentality of it has a specific set of rules and it goes through them and it tries to remove the noise. It appears to be better at removing noise than all the previous methods, but it will be more CPU and GPU intensive. You can combine it with temporal noise reduction if you have a powerful enough machine, and if that's still not working, you can still use third-party utilities like Neat Video. Again, just one more thing that you can use in your toolkit. This is a great great area to point out that Blackmagic's solution to using machine learning appears to be we won't be removing tools for you. We'll be adding additional machine learning powered tools to add into your tool set. So you will have all of your older tools, but we're just going to give you some additional ones that happen to be powered by machine learning, and you can choose whether you want to use your traditional tool set or the newer one that's powered by machine learning. It's totally up to you. Like I mentioned, make sure to click the Analyze button and then move the target if you feel it is necessary. Feature number 8, Face Refinement 2.0. How many people here use face refinement? How many here actually use it on like real world projects? Okay, sorry, I have to ask that. So face refinement is a really, really neat feature that's been, I think it's been in since Davinci Resolve 18. And when it works, it sort of works and feels like magic because it makes an amazing, amazing adjustment. Face refinement is this beauty-based technique that automatically tracks the face and attempts to identify the eyes, the nose, the chin, the forehead, the cheeks, all of these different aspects of a face, track them, and then allow us to adjust them independently. Previously, on the last version of Resolve, when it worked pretty well. When it broke hard. And the problem is we might have 40 or 50 shots in a sequence, and you need to use it on all of them. And there wasn't really a manual way for us to fix it when it broke. It either worked, and then it worked well, and when it broke, we had to find another solution manually, which doesn't always create the same look. So when this update came about, they basically fixed that issue. And they added manual control via keyframes, along with a whole bunch of other things. So let's jump in and I'll show you what I mean. So you can find face refinement in the effects tab, and just by typing face refinement. Gotta re-add it to my favorites. So you drag it on there and, well, nothing happens. So the first thing we need to do is detect faces in frame. And if there's multiple faces, it'll allow you to select either one, but we only have one here. Now I'm going to track backwards and forwards. Now, as a quick pro tip, anytime you're tracking, if you Shift D to disable your grade, it will track faster. And you can see that we have this overlay on our face. Now, as I zoom in, you'll start to see that it's actually a pretty well-defined overlay. We have a nose, we have eyes, we have eyebrows, we have the outline of a face. But we have something that we can do here that we didn't have in our last version. So I can grab any of these, say that this sort of slipped off her face. I can enlarge, I can adjust, I can grab multiple pixels, I can drag one pixel, I can delete pixels, or excuse me, tracking points. This previously did not work like this. It either detected the face perfectly or it didn't. And that was our major breaking feature. This new version allows me to go through, and if this is jumping off or she turns her face in a way that the tracker can't follow, I can manually interpolate and drag these and correct it. It will interpolate in between my correction and what it detected, which now makes this, in my eyes, a professional effect that I can use in all of my real world grading. Previously, it's a cool effect that I can show in demos, and when it works 70% of the time, great. That other 30% of the time, I'm using all the time I just saved to fix those last shots. But now, because I actually have the tools to fix where it can't track, I can actually now rely on this professionally. Now, what does this actually do once I have the track? So let me turn off our overlay and we can look at our skin tone. So immediately we have our skin isolation. Now this is another area that is drastically improved. So we're going to show our skin. I have to turn the effect on again. And right off the bat, not the best. So we're going to adjust this a little bit. Now we can adjust the shadow range, the tint range, the temp range, essentially like pulling a key. And I can do a little bit of softness. I can also exclude the mouth. I can also exclude the eyes and the nose. I can add a little bit of denoising. So these are all a level of control that we didn't really have previously. Yes, I could pull a key manually and feed it into the effect, but that's all I could do. Now I have a lot more control over this internal skin mask. And you can still use an internal alpha if you'd like to. So I want to make sure that we are still using our eyes and our mouth. Great. Okay. Now let's go and improve the skin a little bit. Now right now it's operating in automatic beauty mode. I'm going to just keep it there so we don't get too in the weeds. But you can see that automatically on our cheek we're getting a little bit of softening right there. Okay, now skin grading. This, I'll admit, is not my favorite tool. This is not really where I like to grade skin. But if you need to do something quick and dirty, this is a great way to isolate the skin and you can do something right here. But this is not my chosen way of doing it. But what I will mention is this shine removal. Basically, it's an inverse contrast tool. I think is an incredible way of helping actors when they're sweaty, when they have too much, I mean, you've had a hot light in their face and they're sweating like I am right here. And it just basically removes that glare that is, I mean, it's impossible not to capture it on skin when they've been standing under lights for hours on end. So shine removal is a really nice way to remove that little makeup edge. Now, as we go down, we're going to get a little bit more in the weeds here. Now we have lift, gamma, and gain on the sides of the face. Now we don't have the right side of the face here, but I can literally have just grading controls of her face. And it's just limited to that mask we pulled. Now, eyeshadow, I'm going to admit, is not something that I would regularly do, but we can absolutely start to give our actress a little bit of some eyeshadow. Again, if makeup is really having a rough day, this is something that you can do now. That's how advanced that the detection mechanism has gotten. So, eyes. Now this is really where I am a huge fan of using this. Eyes are the window to our soul. We need to be able to see our talent, particularly hopefully the highlight that we captured in our eye if the DP has captured that. But sometimes it's a little bit soft, sometimes it's underexposed, and this is an area where we can bring our focus back to that. So I'm going to give a tiny, tiny bit of sharpening. A little goes a long way. I'm going to brighten up her eyes just a touch. I'm going to give her a little bit of an highlight, and I'm going to remove her eye bags just a touch. So if I turn that on and off, you can see that we've had quite a difference. Now, one of the tips that I give for this is I advise people to take their effect when working with face refinement to 11 and then back it off. It's really, really easy to go really light and not see anything, but it's also easy to sort of take it to 11 and then look at it and go, ooh, that's so disgusting. I recommend sort of taking it to 10 or 11 and then backing it off to a level that you think is comfortable. And you can do that for every effect. I'll show you how to do that afterwards. And you'll sort of start to find a preset or a medium where, okay, here's where I'm going to go. Like I always know that sharpening is going to be below, like somewhere around 0.02 and below. Because if you start to go up here, it gets a little bit too much. Actually, that's not terrible for this. But let's set it for right there and we'll bring it down later and see how it goes. Okay, lips. I'm going to add a tiny bit of upper lip smooth and we're going to saturate her lip just a tiny bit. Teeth, we have no teeth. Blush. I'll add a tiny bit of blush. Forehead, we can smooth out her forehead if we need to. You can also do a little bit of color correction there. And it goes down to cheeks and chin too. So you can see that this has become a really, really highly versatile effect just based off that track. So if I shift Z to bring this back to the full zoom and every crack, let's go back to that clip so we can see that. Before and after. Great, okay. So feature number 9 is the improved tracking via the Intellitrack AI. I call it improved tracking, but really there is a whole new tracker inside of Davinci Resolve, and it's powered by Davinci Resolve's neural engine. The current tracking algorithms in Davinci Resolve are already quite good. We use a cloud tracker for our power windows, which if you've used in Davinci Resolve, you know is already quite good. There is also already a point tracker in there. We used it in Fusion, and we use it for effects tracking. But we now have a new Intellitracker, which is a point-based AI tracker. Now, what exactly is the difference, and why am I going to use that? Well, let me show you this right here. So I have this clip of this sub border, and this is going to cause a little bit of a problem. So I'm going to try and track this right here. And I know this is going to be a problem already. If I go in a track, it's set to the wrong tracker. So I have it set to our typical cloud tracker that we normally use for power windows, and it gets stuck on the water. Okay, so I can use my normal trick that I do for this routine, which is just to make it small. And okay, that sort of works. But now I have this thing twisting and turning constantly. But okay, if that's what you have to do, you can go and keyframe that. But you can see where this sort of falls. I can make it smaller, but that's sort of the workaround that we've been doing with our cloud tracker. Well, let's take a look at the Intellitrack. We have our same window right there. And the Intellitrack works a little bit differently. It uses points. So I'm going to take a point, and I'm going to put a point right there. And I'm going to take a second point so that I have a little bit more data, and I'm going to put it right there. And I make sure I have my Intellitrack right there, and we're going to go backwards. It's even turning with him. Okay. Hey, look at that. We have a much cleaner track. It's even turning with him. I can do additional isolation if I need to. But essentially what the Intellitrack point tracker is it's an AI powered tracker that's been trained on real world footage. So it's much more versatile to being broken. It's much more versatile to having people walk in front of it. It's much more versatile to being aware of what's happening with the footage. A lot of the times you'll try and track something and it'll get stuck or it'll skew, and it's just, that's not how it will work in the real world. Whereas the Intellitrack should be better in the real world. For instance, I was trying to track two talents, and then there was somebody behind them. And really, I wanted the person behind them. And I was able to track entirely through two people that crossed over them because it's aware that, oh yeah, I'm tracking behind them. It's going in front of them. And just being aware of that, that's basically what artificial intelligence is doing. It's not aware of the scene, but it's been trained on so much footage that has people crossing in front of it that it knows I'm not supposed to go crazy and go around it. I need to stay right here until I catch that track again. It's just another tool that we can use in our creative process. It's not always going to be the best. It's certainly not always going to be the fastest, but it may be the most accurate when we need accuracy, and accuracy counts. That's not always the case in color, but it's great when we need accuracy. And this is also available in the Fusion tab. So if you're going to be doing tracking in Fusion, I highly recommend that you take a look at the Intellitrack point tracker. Number 10, all the small things, and not the Blink-182 album. Remote monitoring using direct IP address intern servers. So you no longer need a Davinci Blackmagic Cloud account. You can directly do remote monitoring, which I was just doing here, from one session to another. Numpad timecode entry, again, we used to have this. It was disabled for some reason. You can now directly enter timecodes into the viewers. Timeline transcription mode. It's basically, you can use the timeline transcription to edit. It's a pretty cool feature. If you're cutting podcasts, I highly recommend you take a look at that. Fixed playhead modes for you monsters that love that. Faster option for speed warp. There's now a faster speed warp option, and I can actually get it to play real time on this laptop. Previously, it would always have to render because we only had a single speed warp option, we now have faster and better. So you can now get a pretty accurate version of speed warp at almost real time. Double click to open compound nodes. Significantly improved voice isolation effect, which we used in that demo that I showed you. Sidechain support, which is not really a small thing, but had to fit it somewhere. Disabling tracks on the deliver tab, which is incredible for versioning and textless. And finally, open color IO and Fusion, including for viewers. And last but not least, if you want more of this color goodness, please feel free to follow my podcast, which is Color and Coffee, and you can check it out at the website below, or check out my products at pixeltoolspost.com.
Thank you.